Hi, I'm Gary Bembridge and this is another of my tips for travellers. I'm currently on a Danube river cruise on Viking River Cruises, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk to you about the things that you really need to know if you are a first timer to river cruising. First of all, river cruising is very different to ocean cruising, and it's much closer to an escorted bus tour around a particular region. So it's a much more curated experience with much less choice and options. Your whole day and the way it's planned is a much more regimented and organized experience, similar to if you were going on a tour around a region on a bus with a guide. You actually travel much shorter distances than you would on an ocean cruise as well. So across a week you might only travel a couple of 100 kilometers, whereas on an ocean cruise, of course, you may travel many hundreds of miles or kilometers every single day as you move around the different destinations. So it's a much more intensive look at a particular region. So it is a very different experience. Don't think of it as an ocean-style cruise on a river. Secondly, the way that you choose a river cruise line, I think, is very different, and it's very much around almost how you'd choose a hotel that you wanted to stay at. Do you normally like to travel in a 3-star, 4-star or 5-star hotel? Do you like to travel in a traditional decor hotel or a very modern and contemporary hotel? Because in practice, river cruise ships are largely the same, and they largely have to be the same because they have to be a certain length, a certain width and a certain height to go along the rivers. So as you see all the different river cruise boats, they look incredibly similar from the outside, and their structure and their facilities inside is also very, very similar. So you're going to have normally a dining room, you're going to have a lounge, perhaps a small library. Some will have a fitness center, some may have a second dining room. So you're not really choosing a river cruise line based on the facilities. You're choosing it first of all based on budget and style. So do you like a very plush 5-star experience, and do you have the budget for that? Or are you looking for something much more on the value side, so more 3-star? So when you come to choose a river cruise line, you're choosing it based on your style of travel, 3, 4-star, 5-star travel, your budget, and also the design and look of the ship once you're on board. Now, the third really important thing about river cruising is often when people come to look at river cruising, they think it looks incredibly expensive. Now, river cruising is a relatively expensive way to travel. However, you need to look beyond the headline fare, because you'll find that river cruising is largely all-inclusive. So you'll normally find on most cruise lines, they have your accommodation, obviously, they have all your dining options, and they will normally have at least one excursion included within the fare wherever you go. They will have Wi-Fi included. Most of the cruise lines will include wine or beer with your lunch and your dinner. You'll have 24-hour tea and coffee making facilities, often with little snacks. And normally what's excluded are things like gratuities, obviously onboard shopping, or if you do go for extra excursions, sometimes they may offer premium excursions. So for example, on the cruise that I was on, we had the option of going to a classical concert when we were in Vienna. So when you look at the cost of a fare, bear in mind that a lot of the things that you're going to pay extra if you go, say, ocean cruising is included in the fare. People often think, my goodness, that's quite expensive, but look at the inclusions. The next key thing that I think people coming to river cruising for the first time should really focus on when you look at which itinerary you're going to do, really focus on the places that it goes to, how long you're going to be calling at them, and also very importantly, take a look at the excursions that are offered and understand where they're going to take you and what you're going to see. Are they going to take you to all the big, really important must-see places? Also, I recommend that you understand to what degree there is cultural immersion on the cruise. So some cruise lines will make sure that every day there's a local menu, and they will bring on board local entertainment. So again, using the example of the cruise I'm on currently, the Viking Danube cruise, every single day on the menu there was a local menu choice with a starter, a main course and a dessert, which was specific to the very specific town or place that we're going through. And then they would bring on board entertainers from that region who would do singing, dancing. I have been on other river cruises where perhaps it has been less so because its specialty, say, French cuisine, and that's what they keep having every day. So very importantly, understand the degree of cultural immersion and what the actual enrichment program is on board. Now, in my opinion, first-time to cruisers should focus on 2 key rivers, the Rhine and the Danube. Now there are many rivers that you can cruise in around Europe, but the Rhine and the Danube are the two big classic ones. So the Rhine is fantastic because you get all the stories and the beautiful castles, especially along the World Heritage stretch of the Rhine River. So the Rhine is an absolute must-do. It's very rich in beautiful castles and incredible scenery. Then there's the Danube, with the classic being between Passau and Budapest, which takes you through some very beautiful parts of the world. But very importantly, you visit three critical capitals. So you will go to Vienna, you'll go to Bratislava, and you'll go to Budapest. Which of those two are my favorite? It depends which one I am currently on, because I love both of those itineraries. The next thing is a kind of watch out. Now I do have a whole nother video which talks about lots of different watch outs about river cruising, but probably the biggest and most important one of all is, if you're first time to river cruising, you need to understand that water levels can play havoc with your itinerary. So either too much water or too little water. And you'll often find there's times of the year, or even certain years, when itineraries are just thrown all over the place. So for example, in 2018 there was a real problem with low water, and the riverboats could not get very far, and sometimes people were being bussed to different excursions or even changing ships to get them further down the river. So bear in mind, although you're booking an itinerary, the water levels could completely throw that out of kilter. Now clearly the cruise companies try and do everything they can, but there's nothing they can do about water levels. The next key thing that a first time river cruiser needs to understand is the season is relatively limited. So the season normally starts around about March, April time and goes on until about October time. Now some cruises will keep running after October, particularly in December for the Christmas markets and some Christmas and New Year's. But basically between December and March, there's no river cruise boats running in Europe. A really good time to go, in my opinion, as a first timer, is if you go around about the May-June time and sort of September. It's a really great time to go because it's not manically busy. You know, these ships are all calling on the same places, and then you add all the land-based tourists on top, and they can be really packed. But you have pretty good weather, it's normally quite bright, and it's not manically busy. And the fares will also reflect that. You'll find you're probably going to get a better value fare, so bear that in mind when you think about planning. If you're considering a river cruise, there's also an important thing to note. It is still really a slightly older activity. So you're generally going to find it's people 55 plus. You're going to find lots of people in their 60s and 70s doing river cruising. Of course, it is evolving, it is changing. There are some cruise companies which are trying to encourage more families. So in the key summer periods, they'll do more family themed cruises. And other cruise lines are trying to introduce more themes, whether it's wine or arts or whatever, to try and attract a more diverse audience. But in practice, it's mostly people in their 50s, 60s, 70s and above. It is, in my view, very much an adult rather than a family vacation option. Most of the river cruises are going to go to places which do have a historical or an arts or a cultural bend. They are getting more active, so there's more cycling and hiking. But the excursions are much more historical and cultural by nature, and there's lots of wine and food integrated to that. So it is very much, in my view, an adult experience. Viking, for example, who I'm on, have decided to reflect that, and all of their cruises, in fact both river and ocean, you have to be over 18 before you go on it. Now what about solo traveling? River cruising is still a real challenge for solo travelers because most cruise lines don't have solo cabins. They're starting to toy with those. But generally speaking, if you're a solo traveler, you're going to have to be quite canny. So do things like sign up for the cruise lines that you're interested in, newsletters, or talk to your agent and find out when they're doing promotions, because some of them will do a no single supplement promotion or they'll do lower surcharges. But as a solo traveler, it's still a real challenge. Most of the times of the year, particularly the peak times of the year, you'll find you're paying a surcharge of 50 to 100%. If you found these tips helpful about river cruising, I have many more videos and tips and ship tours about river cruising. So why don't you take a look at some of those to help understand river cruising much more. And of course, please watch many more of my Tips for Travelers videos. They're designed to help you make the most of your precious travel time and money on land, at sea, and of course, the rivers of the world.